There is a war that existed before your first cry split the silence of the delivery room, before your lungs ever learned the architecture of breathing, before your mother counted your fingers and your father whispered your name like a prayer against the hospital's ceiling. Long before any of that tenderness happened, before any of that soft, human ceremony of arrival, there was a meeting held in a darkness you were never supposed to know about. A file was opened. An assignment was drafted. A coordinated campaign was authorized against a vessel that had not yet taken its first breath of earthly air. And the reason that campaign was authorized, the reason the intelligence report was filed, the reason the assignment was activated with such immediate ferocity was not because you were nothing. It was precisely because you were everything. The enemy of your soul does not waste strategic resources on empty vessels. He does not deploy monitoring spirits, generational curses, bloodline contamination, mental warfare, emotional sabotage, and social isolation all at once against a life that carries no divine weight. He is not inefficient. He is not careless with his assignments. The intensity of the siege you have survived, the sheer relentless volume of opposition that has tracked your life from childhood to this present moment, that is not evidence of your weakness. That is the clearest intelligence briefing you will ever receive about your worth. When you begin to understand the economics of spiritual warfare, when you begin to understand that the enemy only invests where there is a return to destroy, then every wound in your history stops looking like punishment and starts looking like confirmation. Think about what your childhood actually felt like beneath the surface of all the normal activity. There were sicknesses that arrived without medical explanation and doctors who shrugged their shoulders at your chart. There were accidents that should have ended you, moments where the physics of the situation should have produced a catastrophic outcome, and somehow you walked away breathing while everyone in the room looked at each other in stunned silence. There were adults in your life, the very adults whose job description in the universe was to protect you, cover you, celebrate you, and instead they became the primary instruments of your wounding. They held the scalpel when they were supposed to hold the bandage. You grew up inside a family unit feeling like a stranger at a table where everyone else seemed to belong, like you had been dropped into the wrong bloodline by some administrative error in the heavens, like there was a conversation happening in that house that you were never let into. You carried a heaviness in your chest that other children around you did not seem to feel or even notice. You looked out of windows as a child with a longing in your eyes for a place you had never been to, a home that did not yet exist in any geography you had visited, a sense of ancient belonging to something you could not name. Other children were playing. You were watching the sky. Other children were arguing about toys. You were processing something that had no language yet. That was not dysfunction. That was not damage. That was not the early onset of some disorder that needed to be medicated into silence. That was the signature of a divine mandate beginning to wake up inside a vessel that the enemy had already identified, and his countermeasures were already in full deployment around your life before you even understood that there was a war. You won't defeat this attack alone. The weapons of this warfare are not conventional, and the wounds it leaves behind are not the kind that respond to ordinary treatment. Breaking these emotional hexes, dismantling these generational assignments, severing the trauma bonds that were designed to keep you circling the same mountain for decades, that requires a higher code of knowledge than most people ever receive. That is exactly why I just released the 3 keys to a prosperous life trilogy, whose unlocking link is in the pinned comment. Access it before the fog blinds you again. Because the fog is not passive. The confusion you feel when you try to assess your own worth, the sudden mental blurring that happens every time you get close to clarity about your purpose, that is not coincidence. That is a deliberate atmospheric interference designed to keep you just disoriented enough to never fully step into what was written over your life before your birth. Access that link right now. The door is open, but the enemy is counting on your hesitation. The kingdom of darkness operates on a specific intelligence network that most believers never fully study and never fully respect as the organized system that it actually is. It cannot see the future the way God sees it because omniscience belongs only to the divine, and the enemy is not God, no matter how many titles humans assign to his darkness. But what it can do is read the spiritual atmosphere with a sensitivity that functions like the most advanced military surveillance technology you have ever imagined. It can detect the frequency of a chosen vessel the same way that a heat-seeking missile does not need to see the target with its eyes, but simply locks onto the warmth signature until there is no more distance between the weapon and the thing it was sent to destroy. When you entered this world carrying the fingerprint of God on your life, when you crossed the threshold of existence already encoded with divine purpose, you lit up their entire radar system. The assignment was issued immediately. There was no deliberation. There was no period of evaluation to see what you would become. The frequency of what you were carrying was enough. The strategy was then deployed not through some dramatic supernatural confrontation that you could have identified and resisted. It was deployed through the people closest to you, because the enemy understands the power of proximity. He understands that the most effective weapon is not the one that comes from a stranger in the night. It is the one that comes from the mouth of someone whose voice you trust, someone whose opinion of you has already been written into the architecture of your self-worth, someone who is close enough to access your open wounds. He placed agents of accusation inside your family system. He placed agents of rejection in the classrooms where your gifts first tried to emerge into the open air. He placed agents of comparison and competition into your friendship circles, your church communities, your work environments, everywhere you tried to build and belong. And he used these people, these human instruments of an ancient assignment, to do what Pharaoh's decree tried to do to Moses in the rushes of the Nile River, which was to eliminate the deliverer before the deliverer could grow into the fullness of their authority. Because a Moses who never makes it to the palace never confronts the system. A David who is eliminated in the fields never stands on the valley floor before a giant that has terrorized an entire army. A Joseph who is successfully buried in that pit never arrives in Egypt to save a generation from starvation. This is why the attacks on chosen vessels are concentrated at the beginning of the timeline, in childhood, in adolescence, in those first years of young adulthood when identity is still being formed and the voice of the wound is loudest. If the enemy can get to you before you know who you are, he can write a false identity into your nervous system that functions like a cage made of your own beliefs about yourself. He can make you build the prison with your own hands, using the materials of your own self-doubt, and never once show you the blueprint he handed you through the mouths of those who were supposed to love you. You need to look at the entire pattern of your childhood wounds now, with the eyes of a spiritual investigator rather than the eyes of a wounded child still waiting for an apology that may never come. The parent who could not celebrate you, who sat in silence when you achieved something extraordinary, who found the flaw in every success and the comparison in every moment of your glory. That parent was hosting a spirit of Saul that felt the threat of your anointing, the same way Saul felt the anointing on David and could not rest inside his own skin because of it. The sibling who constantly undermined you, who took what was yours and justified it with a smile, who competed with you at every turn with an aggression that never made logical sense, given that you were family. That sibling was carrying the spirit of Cain that hates the accepted sacrifice. Abel did nothing to Cain. Abel simply brought his offering with a whole heart, and it was received. That was enough to activate murder. The teacher who graded you unfairly, the coach who overlooked you season after season while promoting someone with less talent but fewer threatening gifts, The friend who smiled at your face with teeth that gleamed and then whispered your name in dark corners behind your back. These were not random people with random personal issues that happened to collide with your life by accident. These were pattern-based spiritual assignments, wearing human clothing and living human lives. Most of them unaware of what was operating through them. Most of them genuinely believing their own narratives about you. The enemy does not need conscious cooperation. He only needs an open door. Now look at the timing. Look at the specific geography of every attack that has come against your life. Every time you got close to a breakthrough, something happened. Not sometimes. Every time. A relationship that had been quietly poisoning you suddenly exploded at the exact moment you needed emotional stability to step through an open door. A financial emergency materialized out of nowhere with the kind of precision that almost felt engineered, appearing at the exact intersection of your readiness and your resource gap. Your body got sick at the precise moment you needed to be physically strong enough to show up for the opportunity that had finally arrived. Your mind got flooded with anxiety, with intrusive thoughts, with a mental fog so thick that clarity became impossible at the exact moment you needed the sharpness to make the decision that would have changed your trajectory. This is not a coincidence pattern. This is the spirit of delay and containment that is documented in the 10th chapter of the book of Daniel with a specificity that should unsettle and empower you simultaneously. The Prince of Persia withstood the angel carrying Daniel's answer for 21 days. Not because the answer was withheld, not because God had forgotten the prayer, but because there is a dimension of this war that operates in the heavenlies above your timeline, with specific assignments to create friction, to introduce delay, to exhaust the vessel until the vessel decides the answer is not coming and puts the prayer down. The enemy cannot stop the plan of God. That authority was stripped from him at the cross with a finality that was cosmic and complete. But he will spend every resource in his diminished kingdom trying to wear you down until you voluntarily forfeit the promise through exhaustion and despair. The monitoring spirits assigned to your life represent the most subtle and the most psychologically sophisticated layer of this entire warfare. And it is the layer that does the most damage because it works through people you chose to trust. These are not demons you can see with natural eyes or identify through dramatic, supernatural manifestations. They operate through human beings, through people who have positioned themselves in your life not to celebrate you, but to gather intelligence on your vulnerabilities, to identify the crack in the armor that a more direct assault could then exploit. They ask about your plans, not to support them, but to find what you are hoping for, so that they know what to contaminate. They show up at your moments of genuine excitement and open sharing, with questions that sound like curiosity and interest, but function like the careful data collection of someone building a case against you. They are present at your celebrations, but their presence never quite adds to the joy. You felt it in your gut every time you shared your good news, and their congratulations came out hollow, 2 or 3 degrees cooler than the temperature of the moment required. That was not your imagination being paranoid. That was not your trauma making you suspicious of people who genuinely meant you well. That was your discernment operating at precisely the frequency it was designed to operate at, reading the spiritual signature behind the social performance and reporting back to you accurately. The problem was that you had been trained to distrust your own discernment. You had been trained, primarily by the very people who were monitoring you, to believe that your ability to sense what was real beneath what was performed was actually a character flaw, an emotional instability, a tendency to see problems where none existed. That retraining of your discernment was not accidental. It was the most important part of the assignment. The physical sensation of these attacks arrives in the body before it arrives in the mind. There is a specific pressure in the chest that has no cardiac explanation, a constriction that settles in somewhere between the sternum and the throat and makes breathing feel like an act of effort rather than an automatic reflex. There is a heaviness in the limbs that sleep does not fix, a tiredness that lives below the level of the physical and feels more like the weight of something invisible pressing down on your entire existence from above. The intrusive thoughts that accompany these seasons are not random. They are targeted. They arrive with your specific history attached to them. They sound like your mother's voice or your father's silence. They carry the temperature of the most wounding words that were ever spoken over your life. And they arrive at 3 in the morning, at 4 in the morning, at the exact hour when your defenses are lowest and the rational mind is suspended and the wound is most exposed. That is not your psychology working against you in isolation. That is a coordinated spiritual action designed to access the primitive memory, the first wound, the original assignment of shame that was written into your nervous system before you had the language to contest it. As I teach heavily and deeply to those who arrive at the 3 keys to a prosperous life trilogy, and I've already left the link for you in the pinned comment, this weight on your chest is just a symptom. It is not the diagnosis. It is not the verdict. It is a signal that something beneath the surface is being targeted because something beneath the surface is about to be activated. The weight is not evidence of your defeat. The weight is the friction that tells you the breakthrough is close enough that the enemy has increased his pressure to prevent it. You are not going under. You are going through. The dream of persecution is the first language the spiritual warfare speaks into your sleep. You are running in that dream, and your legs have become something other than legs. They are made of lead or water or absence itself. You are moving without movement. You are fleeing without distance being created between you and the thing pursuing you. The dream is humid, and the air in the dream has weight. The threat behind you is never fully visible. It is a presence rather than a form, a darkness with intention rather than a darkness with a face. You wake from this dream with your heart already in distress, with the adrenaline already in your bloodstream, with the body already in a state of alarm before consciousness has fully returned to the room you sleep in. You look at the ceiling, and for a moment you do not know which world is more real, the one you just fled or the one you have returned to. This dream is not the random processing of daily anxiety. This is the spiritual realm communicating through the theater of sleep in a language that bypasses your intellectual defenses and writes directly onto the emotional body. The pursuit in the dream is real. The assignment behind it is real. The legs of lead are not metaphor. They are the physical sensation that corresponds to a spiritual truth, which is that there is a force in the atmosphere of your life right now that is attempting to neutralize your forward momentum, to make your advancement feel impossible, to make the effort of progress feel disproportionate to the results, to make you ask yourself why you are working so hard and arriving nowhere. That is the assignment of containment wearing the costume of your sleeping mind. The poisoned compliment is perhaps the most sophisticated weapon in the arsenal of the soul spirit that has been deployed against your life. There is a specific kind of person who has learned, whether through conscious calculation or through the unconscious curriculum of their own woundedness, how to package envy in the wrapping of praise. You know this person. You have sat across from this person at a dinner table or in a church pew or in a workplace meeting room. They look you directly in the eye and they say something that sounds like celebration. The words examined in isolation are positive, but the smile behind the words does not reach the eyes. The eyes are doing something different from the mouth. The eyes are measuring you. The eyes are calculating the distance between where you are and where they wanted to be. The distance between what you have become and what they believed they deserved more than you. The compliment lands in your body not like warmth, but like a small cold object. Your gut registers it before your mind has finished processing the sentence. There is a split second where you almost say something about it, almost name what you felt, and then the social training kicks in and you smile back and say thank you and file the interaction in the cabinet marked confusing rather than the cabinet marked dangerous. But the spiritual tribunal records something entirely different about that interaction. It records an act of dark intention cloaked in the language of blessing. It records the specific frequency of spiritual envy, which is one of the most potent forces in the occult arsenal because it is charged not just with the desire to harm, but with the pain of perceived injustice. The person releasing it believes on some level that your blessing was taken from them. That belief charges the release with a frequency that can create real interference in the spiritual atmosphere around your life. The blatant copy is the manifestation of that envy moving from passive observation into active theft. There is a category of person who has been watching you not to learn from you, but to replicate you close enough to replace you. They do not want what you have. The distinction is critical, and you must understand it fully because it changes the entire nature of what is being done to you. They do not want your specific possessions or your specific opportunities. They want to be who you are. They want to stand where you stand in the spiritual architecture of things. They want to occupy the frequency that God assigned to your life specifically. This is not flattery. This is spiritual identity theft. And it operates through a specific kind of mimicry that is never quite perfect because it cannot be perfect. They can copy the outward expression of your gift, but they cannot copy the root system that the gift grows from. They can copy your language, but they cannot copy the revelation that your language was built to carry. They can copy your aesthetic, but they cannot copy the anointing that made the aesthetic meaningful in the first place. And in their copying, they reveal themselves more completely than any accusation ever could. The primitive memory this activates in you is the memory of every time someone took credit for what you built. Every time someone erased your name from the contribution. Every time your idea left your mouth and arrived at the room's reception through someone else's voice and was celebrated there as original. That memory sits in the body as a grief that has never had a proper ceremony. Sleep paralysis is the most visceral of all the spiritual warfare experiences because it removes the one guarantee that most people hold on to, which is that when you are conscious, you are in control of your own body. In the paralysis, you are conscious. You are fully aware. You can see the room around you with a clarity that is almost more sharp than waking sight, but your body will not respond. The signal from your brain to your limbs is interrupted, and the interruption feels like something other than neurological. It feels intentional. It feels like a weight, a specific physical weight that is distributed across your chest and your shoulders and sometimes concentrated on your sternum with the precision of a deliberate placement. And in the periphery of your vision or at the edge of the room, there is sometimes a presence that you do not see directly, but that you feel with the most ancient part of your awareness, the part that was designed before rationality was installed, the part that reads danger correctly because it has no interest in the social performance of politeness. The intrusive thought that the paralysis brings is always the same at its core, regardless of the specific imagery it wears. It is the thought that you are alone in this, that no protection is coming, that the darkness is in this particular moment more real and more powerful than any promise you have ever believed. That thought is the actual weapon. The paralysis is the vehicle. The weapon is the targeted theological lie delivered at the moment of maximum vulnerability, delivered to the nervous system rather than the mind, so that it bypasses your intellectual defenses entirely and writes itself directly onto the body as felt truth. The burned-out light bulb, the electronics that fail at the worst possible moment, the car that will not start on the morning of the most important appointment, The technology that freezes in the middle of the presentation that was supposed to open a new level of your life. These are the material interference events that rationalism insists on explaining away as coincidence, and the spiritually aware understand as something more organized than coincidence ever is. Stress and oppression operating at high enough levels create real electromagnetic interference. This is not mysticism separated from physics. This is physics that rationalism has not yet caught up to fully. The human body, under sustained spiritual oppression, emits a frequency that can and does interact with the electromagnetic fields of the technology around it. But beyond the physics is the pattern. And the pattern is what demands your attention. It is never random. It is always targeted. It is always precisely timed to the moment when the disruption will cause maximum damage to your forward momentum. The spiritual action behind this phenomenon is the same spirit of delay and containment working in the material dimension, what it works in the spiritual dimension through the Prince of Persia model. The goal is always the same: create friction, introduce fatigue, make progress feel cursed, make the vessel begin to wonder if the blessing is real or if the resistance is the only real thing. The silence in the room is something you know with your entire body before your mind has registered the social information. Someone has entered the space and the atmosphere of the space has changed. The air has acquired a density that it did not have a moment before. The conversation that was flowing freely has developed a resistance. The laughter that was genuine has become performed. And you are the one in the room who notices this first, who feels it first, before anyone else seems to register that anything has shifted. That is not social anxiety. That is a spiritual sensitivity that has been refined through years of being the person in the room who was most often on the receiving end of an envy that the room politely pretended did not exist. You learn to read the room the way a person who has survived a minefield learns to read the ground, with a precision born of stakes that were never theoretical. The heaviness that envy generates in a physical space is one of the most documented phenomena across every spiritual tradition on earth, regardless of language or geography or religious framework. It is the recognition that a dark intention has entered a space that was previously clean, and the recognition lands in the body as a cooling, a constriction, a drawing inward of energy that the body is doing automatically to protect itself. The unexpected betrayal arrives with a specific physical signature. There is a moment of absolute stillness inside you when the confirmation comes that the person you trusted has done what the whisper in your discernment was trying to warn you about for longer than you are comfortable admitting. The stillness is not peace. It is the stillness of a system that has received a shock too large to process immediately and has gone quiet in order to survive the initial impact. The Judas who slept in the same tent with you, who ate from the same table with you, who knew the language of your wounds and the geography of your hopes, who had access to the most unguarded version of you that existed, that Judas did not arrive in your life by accident. The enemy does not deploy random betrayers against chosen vessels. He deploys specifically selected ones, people whose particular combination of gifts and wounds and history makes them capable of getting close enough to do the damage that a stranger never could. The primitive memory that this betrayal activates is always the first betrayal, the original one, the one that taught the nervous system that closeness is a liability and trust is a door left open in a house that is not safe. And the spiritual tribunal records the betrayer's action against the weight of what they knew, the weight of what they were given, the weight of the specific trust that was violated, and the verdict is measured accordingly in a court that has access to information that no human court ever will. The reacting animal is the intelligence your dog carries in its body that your rational mind keeps overriding in the name of social courtesy. Your dog barks at the person who smiles too widely and touches you too familiarly, and talks about you with a warmth that is performed rather than felt. Your dog growls at the visitor who comes with gifts in their hands and surveillance in their eyes. Your dog will not settle in the presence of a certain category of guest, no matter how long they stay, no matter how normal the conversation appears, no matter how much your socially trained self wants to apologize for your animal's rudeness. And you have been taught to apologize for the animal. You have been taught to tell the animal to be quiet, to be friendly, to trust the social performance more than the biological truth. But the animal was not trained in politeness. The animal reads the frequency directly. The animal has no investment in protecting the feelings of the person it is warning you about. The animal is doing with its body and its voice exactly what your discernment has been trying to do in the back corridors of your awareness for the entire duration of the relationship. The spiritual action here is the assignment of a familiar spirit that operates in the energetic field of the person visiting your space. Animals detect this specific frequency more reliably than humans do, because animals have no motivation to explain it away. The numerical coincidence arrives at the edge of your lowest moments with a regularity that eventually becomes impossible to dismiss as coincidence, regardless of how committed you are to rational explanations. You look at the clock at 11:11. You look at the receipt and the total is 3:33. You wake at 4:44 from a dream that felt like instruction. You see these numbers not once in a period, but repeatedly, in clusters, at the specific moments when you most need to be reminded that you are not alone, that there is an intelligence above the chaos of your circumstances that is still aware of you and still actively communicating with you. This is the universal compass that the divine has embedded in the fabric of material reality for the specific use of vessels who are navigating warfare at a level that requires more than human reassurance. The intrusive thought that the enemy sends in these moments is always the same. It is the suggestion that you are reading meaning into randomness because your psychology needs comfort. It is the voice of the oppressor in the clothing of reason, using your own intellectual dignity as a weapon against your spiritual awareness. The divine promotion encoded in these moments is the reminder that you are being guided, that the wilderness has coordinates, that the path has not disappeared simply because you cannot see it from your current position in the fog. The solitary victory is the most bittersweet of all the experiences that mark the life of a chosen vessel. You break through. You actually break through the wall that has been holding you back. The thing that the enemy spent years trying to prevent you from achieving is now achieved. The door that was closed is now open. The promise that felt like it would age in your hands before it was ever fulfilled has been fulfilled, and you are alone with it. The people who should have been in the room with you,